Coming up on KPBS Evening Edition, a candidate for San Diego mayor drops out of the Republican Party. We'll talk with him about his decision.
And does this look like you? Look at our addiction to gadgets and gizmos. KPBS Evening Edition starts now.
Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Joanne Farian.
I'm Dwayne Brown.
A startling announcement today from one of San Diego's mayoral candidates. Nathan Fletcher says he's leaving the Republican Party to become an independent. This morning he posted a video explaining his decision and criticizing partisan politics as gamesmanship.
I fought in a war. I put it all on the line for my country. I didn't go through all of that to come back home and run for office to play games.
Fletcher says he believes becoming an independent best reflects his values, and he believes it's right for San Diego.
Representative Fletcher says he struggled with the decision for a while. He served as a Republican assemblyman since 2008. He recently lost out on the local Republican mayoral endorsement to City Councilman Carl DeMaio. KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr spoke with Fletcher this afternoon. And Katie, why did Fletcher say he's leaving the Republican Party?
Well, Dwayne, as Joanne said, Fletcher says becoming an independent is more reflective of his political stance. And I asked him why he's becoming an independent when the race for mayor is nonpartisan in the first place.
Well, the mayor's race is supposed to be nonpartisan. But I think we've seen partisan politics, in particular the divisive aspect of it, creep into everything. You have a Republican Party chairman, an insider, who says there is no such thing as a nonpartisan race. You see candidate Bob Filner, who touts as really the only substantive reason to vote for him that he's the only Democrat. And so unfortunately it's become that, and I think it's important to send a message to all San Diegans of the type of mayor that I'll be, and to let them know that before people begin considering votes or before they begin casting votes. Republicans need to know that. Democrats need to know that. I want everyone to know exactly the type of mayor I'll be.
But why leave the Republican Party now? Critics have said it's because you didn't get the local GOP nomination. And if that weren't the case, why didn't you leave the party earlier?
Well, critics are always going to criticize whatever it is that you do. And I never expected to get the party endorsement. You know, it has devolved to a point where it takes a Carl DeMaio type candidate to say, I'm going to make San Diego the Wisconsin of the West, is his vision for our city, a state that is the example of gridlock. There's riots and protests and people getting arrested. And so I never expected it. And throughout my tenure in office, I've always been an independent voice for what I believe is right. I've demonstrated that in the legislature, where I broke ranks with my party when my conscience told me it was right. And I think it's important now in this election to let San Diegans know, the type of mayor I'll be, what my focus will be, and that I'm not going to be a mayor that's going to play games or worry about what party insiders think.
But if you didn't expect to get the nomination, why wait until that process was complete before leaving the party? I
mean, in so many ways, I've been struggling with this decision for several years. Since I was first elected to the Assembly, and I took such considerable grief for standing up for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I took considerable grief working on tax reform with Governor Jerry Brown. I took considerable grief by making a commitment to our environment, preserving our open spaces and pushing for renewable energies. And at a certain point, the partisan nature of our politics has devolved to a point where you can't do what your conscience tells you, but most importantly, you can't work with people to actually solve problems. And moving forward, I want San Diegans to know that I'll be a mayor that will work with anyone, regardless of their party, and I'll focus more on the actual solution than some games playing that takes place in partisan politics today.
You have said before that you could win the race as a Republican, but the polls have shown you consistently trailing Councilman Carl DeMaio. At the same time, the latest poll shows 35% of people are undecided about who they're going to vote for.
Right.
So how do you respond to people who say this is just a desperate attempt on your part to capture those voters?
Well, people are going to criticize whatever you do. I had another group of people say, gosh, you're the only candidate moving up in the polls. Carl DeMaio's flat, Bob Filner's flat, Bonnie Dumanis is dropping. We clearly aren't having any trouble fundraising or volunteers or building support. And I believe absolutely we could have won the race as a Republican, but I don't think I could govern the city the way it needs to be governed as one. I think the partisan nature of today's world, I've been told repeatedly by party insiders I got to learn how to play the game if I want to have success in party politics. Oppose good ideas, grandstand on things. Well, Katie, I'm not here to play games. I didn't run for office to play games. I didn't survive a war to come home to run for office to play games. I came here to get things done. And this sends a message to all of San Diego that if you want a mayor that's going to work with Democrats, who's going to work with Republicans, who's not going to care what the party insiders think, who's just going to care about what's in the best interest of our city, then vote for me. If you want one of the others, then you have a clear choice, and I'll respect whatever decision the voters make. But I can only do what in my heart I believe is right and best for our city.
Being an independent may not hurt you in the mayor's race because it is technically nonpartisan, but what about your future political career? How are you going to deal with that, essentially being a man without a party?
Well, this has come up a lot about your future, and I just don't care about future success. I care about San Diego. I care about the opportunity we have in this election with this mayor, and that really is my highest priority.
You were endorsed by former governor and former San Diego Mayor Pete Wilson,
right.
Who has said that he was disappointed by your decision to leave the Republican Party.
Right.
Are you worried about future endorsements or future support from, he was a mentor of yours.
Right.
Are you worried about situations like that going forward?
When you do what you believe is right and best, I think that people can respect that. If we lose endorsements, that's okay. I understand that's a distinct possibility. But at the end of the day, my positions aren't changing, my policies aren't changing, my core beliefs and principles aren't changing. And so if I lose a supporter at this point, it's just because they were actually supporting a partisan label and not me. And that I think is the real difference here.
I spoke with political scientist Carl Luna today. He said Fletcher's move is a smart one because it will increase his name recognition and give him a more direct shot at frontrunners Carl DeMaio and Bob Filner.
KPBS Metro reporter Katie Orr.
We have reaction to Fletcher's decision from the other mayoral candidates. San Diego Councilman Carl DeMaio said this in an email: "From my time as a watchdog who helped uncover the city's financial problems to my leadership on ending sweetheart deals at City Hall, I have taken on powerful insiders from both political parties to fight for reform on behalf of taxpayers." District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis tweeted this statement: "When you're in a tough spot, you stick to your principles. You stay true to who you are. You don't panic. You don't get desperate." And Congressman Bob Filner said this in an email: "Although I don't usually agree with Republican Party Chair Tony Kriveric, I think this time he has gotten it right." And he quotes him: "Today's move is all about his personal ambitions for higher office, nothing more. I have lived in San Diego a long time, and I know San Diegans are too smart to fall for this political ploy."
In other news tonight, a state board won't be able to act against San Diego's pension reform initiative before Election Day. Today, a judge delayed hearings by the Public Employment Relations Board until late June. Labor leaders want the board to take Proposition B off the ballot, saying it's city-sponsored since the chief backers are Mayor Jerry Sanders and Councilman Carl DeMaio. The unions say the city should have negotiated with them. Pension reform supporters say it's a citizens' initiative and not subject to labor talks.
A dismissal hearing for a Camp Pendleton Marine has been postponed. Sergeant Gary Stein faces dismissal for Facebook postings criticizing President Obama. He's accused of violating Defense Department policies against political speech. Stein says he has the right to express his opinion. His hearing has been moved from Saturday to April 5th because of scheduling conflicts.
The Postal Service is trying to save money by closing or relocating some of its post offices, but the idea isn't going over so well at the main post office in La Jolla. This is the commercial core of La Jolla, where a lot of businesses are locally owned. It's also where the main post office has sat for 77 years on the corner of Wall Street and Ivanhoe Avenue. Now the Postal Service wants to downsize and move from this location.
This is not just a La Jolla situation.
Joe LaCava has lived here for 25 years and says other communities have fought the battle and lost. He says there's a growing awareness of how important the post office is to this community.
Something that, frankly, a lot of people kind of take for granted. But once you tell them that the post office might be moving, it has been uniform, the reaction. Everybody is saying, no, we've got to keep it here.
When this facility opened in 1933, the cost to mail a letter was only 3 cents. Today, it's 45 cents. Eva Jackson with the Postal Service says this is about cost cutting.
They're not going to lose this building and the historic nature of it. It may not be a post office any longer, but they are not going to lose their building.
Jackson says this may be the only post office in the county being relocated. It does bring in revenue, but it doesn't need as much space to operate.
So now we only use just this front section and the P.O. boxes. So we're actually looking for a storefront with about 6,100 square feet.
But first, the Postal Service must find a suitable buyer who agrees to keep the building's historical features intact, and then find a location to move the post office within a mile of this spot.
We want to be part of that conversation and let both the post office as well as any potential buyers know what the community thinks would be a good use of this space.
And the community forum will be held tomorrow night at 6:30 at the La Jolla Rec Center. The Postal Service will hold its first public meeting at the end of April.
Orphanages are a thing of the past here in the U.S., but they still exist south of the border. In a moment, a look at how some San Diegans are helping these children.
And if this is you hooked on your cell phone or your laptop, you might just have an eye disorder. That's like the letter I, to be precise. We'll get some advice on using our technology without getting addicted. Coming up in a moment.
This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Tonight on KPBS at 8, some of the biggest creatures feed on the smallest. Nature discovers why size matters on Ocean Giants, Giant Lives. Then at 9, one day your personal DNA will be read, stored, and available for analysis. Bioethics on Nova, cracking your genetic code. And at 10, how we came to understand that our planet was not at the center of everything. What is out there on the history of science? That's tonight on KPBS.
I'm Gwen Eiffel on the next News Hour, the politics of health care reform and the prospects for war between Iran and Israel. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Today, I'm in Vermont dairy country to discover how our energy can come from the most unlikely of sources. Find out on the new PBS series, America Revealed.
KPBS Evening Edition is made possible by Joan and Erwin Jacobs and by
Orphanages were phased out in the U.S. in the 1960s, but just south of San Diego, many abandoned children are still cared for in these group homes in Baja California.
Unlike our government-supported foster care system, they depend heavily on charity to survive. From our Fronteras desk, Jose Luis Jimenez tells us about an orphan from Mexico who immigrated to the U.S. and now runs a foundation to help kids without parents.
It has become a monthly tradition for some. A bus starts before dawn in Los Angeles, stops in Orange County, and finally arrives at Mission Bay Park in San Diego. There, it picks up more supplies and people. The final destination will not be one of the region's popular tourist spots. Instead, the group of 50 or so volunteers will spend the day at an orphanage, one that is within driving distance of Southern California. Bill Phelps from Encinitas is preparing to go on his 26th trip in a row. He enjoys reading to the kids, helping them paint, and occasionally acting as a pony during the once-a-month visits.
Last time when I went there, I went into the toddler room, and they hadn't seen me for, I guess, 4 or 5 months. Before I could even sit down, they were already digging into my bag, getting out the colored pencils and the coloring books.
Volunteers donate a variety of items, from toys to clothing to household cleaners. Once loaded up, the bus makes the quick trip south on the freeway into Mexico. After a stop at the Mexican Customs building, the bus winds its way out to Tijuana's eastern neighborhoods. It's a combination of new communities and industrial buildings. But there are also many older neighborhoods that preceded Tijuana's modern boom. The orphanage, Casa Hogar Zion, is in one of these areas. The road is not paved, there are no sidewalks nor streetlights. There is a palpable excitement in the air as the bus arrives. The orphans congregate near the entrance, anxious to meet the visitors. After quickly unloading items from the bottom of the bus, the children waste no time opening the toys, books, and craft supplies brought to them from the north.
At any given time, there are about 100 orphans here at this home. They range in age from infants to university students. Most have been brought here by the government because of circumstances in their home, be it child abuse or drug abuse by their parents. Some of them have just been brought here by their parents because they couldn't care for them anymore.
Dalei Valenzuela came to Casa de Sion after her parents died. The tall 9-year-old likes to play volleyball and go to church, but is not that excited about school. When she grows up, she'd like to be a singer, or a dancer, or a pastor. She appreciates the visitors because they fill a special need.
Even though I don't have two parents, they are like our parents. They help us.
Some people do more than simply donate items. Some try to equip the children with tools to become successful adults. On a trip to Casa de Sion last year, Rick Levis Fitzgerald heard about a teenager who had just graduated from high school and dreamed of becoming a doctor. But the kid, Lorenzo Virelas Catalan, had no money to pay for his education. Levis went back home to Santa Monica, and with the help of friends, they now raise $500 a month for Lorenzo's education. The two met for the first time on this trip. Levis believes it's important for Lorenzo to become independent and set an example to others in the home.
Because coming here for the day doesn't do much. It's whether you come back and what you do after that.
Without the financial help, Lorenzo would not have been able to attend college. He and his 4 siblings came to Casa de Sion when Lorenzo was 8. 12 years later, they all still live at the home.
No, well, to tell the truth, there's no way for me to pay them back for all of their help. And also, if they would not have helped me economically, I would not have been able to go to the university.
There are a total of 9 buildings at the orphanage. And one of the more popular areas is the nursery, where newborns and toddlers are cared for. The volunteers enjoy holding and playing with the tiny kids, who are unaware of their circumstances. Hilda Pacheco Taylor helped organize the trip. She is the founder of the Corazón de Vida Foundation, one of the orphanage's primary sponsors. Pacheco and her 4 siblings became orphans after their father abandoned the family. Her mother, a tortilla maker, could not make enough money to support them.
She had known about the orphanages. She had known about that system. But, obviously she didn't want to give her kids up. So she did end up taking us to an orphanage. And it was probably the best thing she could have done for us. It was a huge sacrifice, but it really helped us.
Pacheco and her family eventually immigrated to the U.S. Years later, she visited her orphanage and was surprised to see how the home deteriorated. It was struggling to feed the children. In 1994, she started the foundation, which now helps support 15 orphanages throughout Baja California. The nonprofit has been bringing U.S. residents to the group homes for 18 years. Carmen Gonzalez, the director of Casa de Sion, says she could not operate the home without the kindness of strangers.
I was privileged to have started the orphanage and to be a founder. But this is possible because many people help us, help these children succeed.
After a lunch of pizza and fruit salad, the kids enjoy some homemade cupcakes from Los Angeles. Then there's some last-minute playtime, and the volunteers board the bus to head back to the United States. They disembark so the vehicle can be inspected for contraband and their residency checked. After waiting 2 hours to cross the border, they're back in the U.S. to begin their journey to their comfortable homes.
That's Jose Luis Jimenez from our Fronteras Desk. You can learn more about this story on the web at fronterasdesk.org. Smartphones, social networking, and texting, it's all part of our new technology reality. You can't go anywhere these days without finding someone distracted by their smartphone, even here at KPBS. San Diego researcher says this new reality can also cause symptoms of psychological disorders. Joanne has more on that from the Roundtable.
Joining me to talk about this obsession with technology and its downside is Dr. Larry Rosen, author of I Disorder, Understanding Our Obsession with Technology and Overcoming Its Hold on Us. Dr. Rosen, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Now, is it digital technology that's causing this problem, or maybe some of us already have this problem and we're just attracted to digital technology?
I think it's a little of both, but I think really it's the latter. I think that the technology itself is exacerbating problems that we have, but also creating problems for us. For example, when we get on Facebook and we start posting things on Facebook like status updates, a lot of people will post things that all say, I, me. It's all about me. And that's really exhibiting traits of narcissism. So what you're starting to see is people are playing out things behind screens that they may have inside, or the technology may help them play that out.
So if we didn't have Facebook, would we just not be able to channel our inner narcissists, or what would happen?
Well, what we would be doing is using email probably and doing exactly the same thing. I'm sure you've gotten emails from people and it's all about me. It's a big, big post to all my friends just so you can see what I'm doing in France right now, as if anybody really cared.
So what are some of the other psychiatric disorders that you connect to eye technology?
Well, there's quite a few. My favorites and the ones I think that are most interesting are obsessive compulsive disorder and social phobia. Those are two that I think are real critical. And obsessive compulsive disorder is easy. I mean, you can't walk out of your house without your phone, right? You can't do it. And I spend much of my day patting my pockets just to make sure that my phone is there, sort of like a safety blanket almost. And what we see particularly with young kids, with teenagers, and even young adults, is they are literally acting like they have OCD. They cannot go to dinner without having the phone out on the table. If they get a text, they almost, like Pavlov's dogs, they almost salivate and have to answer it immediately. So these kinds of technologies are encouraging us to exhibit these signs of obsessive compulsive disorder. Same thing with social phobia, though. We are social animals, and yet a lot of our socialization right now and a lot of our communication is taking place behind screens. And we're not thinking very carefully behind screens about the kinds of things we're saying and the kinds of words that we're uttering to people at the other end of the screen. And so people are feeling phobic about being social because they've been hurt online. They've gotten nasty comments to a post that they thought was innocuous. And so there's all these kind of weird things going on where the technology is impacting us in strange ways.
It's almost like we're not taking part in our own lives. We're just posting about them rather than living them in some way.
I think that's a very good point. And I think part of what I talk about in the book is it's not about giving up the technology. We're too far along the road for that one. And besides which, it's wonderful technology. I love it. I can do anything I want. The problem is learning to moderate your use of it. And I think that's the key right now. And in the book, what I talk about a lot is what goes on in your brain. What is your brain doing when you're using the technology, which is very attractive and lots of bright lights and colors and vibrations and beeps and everything that grabs you in, but also what's going on inside your head when you're not using the technology. You're thinking, ooh, I wonder if somebody liked my post that I did the other day. Oh, today's so-and-so's birthday. I better go on Facebook and wish them happy birthday. Oh, somebody said there was a new YouTube video of cats doing fun things. I should go look at that. And then 3 hours later, you're still online looking at YouTube videos of cats.
So how did you conduct your research?
I've been doing research for actually about 30 years on this topic, from the very beginnings of technology in our world, when we had just big computers behind glass walls. And I've seen the change happening over time, and I've seen how the technology is coming faster and faster and faster, and how we're not really reacting to it psychologically. We're just taking it in, using it without thinking about what it might be doing to us and the people that we care about around us.
What's your best advice? I'm one of those people. I have my phone right here next to me. I really can't be without it. It's next to my bed at night. What's your best advice?
Best advice that I have overall is that we need to learn how to focus without using our technology. And so what I do in my life, and what people I know do, as well as teachers in classrooms, families at dinner, is do what I call tech breaks, which is, suppose you're at dinner with your family and everybody brings their phone to the table because they have to check it. Otherwise, they might miss out on something important in a 45-minute dinner. Everybody check your phone, 1 minute. Okay, everybody text, do this, do this. Turn your phone to silent, turn it upside down on the table. Now what that is a stimulus that says in, say, 15 minutes, I'm going to get to check my phone. It's there. It's telling my brain to not worry about it. And now you have a family conversation for 15 minutes. Everybody talks. Talk about technology. Talk about your day. It doesn't really matter. 15 minutes, somebody yells, tech break, and everybody checks their phone for a minute, puts it down again. That works beautifully. And what you can also do is you can start lengthening the 15 minutes if you want your kids to focus a little more. So you make it 20 minutes after a while, and pretty soon maybe they can go the whole dinner without using their phone.
And our time is up. Dr. Rosen, thank you so much for being here. Where is your book? Where can people find it?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, any bookstore.
And the title again, Eye Disorder, Understanding Our Obsession with Technology and Overcoming Its Hold on Us. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Some voters are reacting to Assemblyman Nathan Fletcher's decision to leave the Republican Party. We'll have that in the public square in just a moment. This is KPBS Evening Edition.
Doc Martin is back.
My goodness.
It's a new season, and he's a new dad.
Look at that. Brand new little family. It's disgusting.
But he's leaving Port Wynn, and they've already replaced him.
I'm Dr. Dibbs. The new doctor said I could have some for my ankles.
Well, she's wrong. Put it back.
Can Martin and Louisa make it work now that there's a baby?
Bit of a puzzler there then, eh, Doc?
The season premiere of Doc Martin.
Watch new episodes, part of a season premiere event, Thursday at 8 on KPBS.
The fabric of democracy, I think, really has worn very thin.
The opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice.
Americans have to fight for the American dream.
Democracy is not what governments do, it's what people do.
This is how we fight back.
Moyers and Company. I'm Bill Moyers. Join me Friday nights at 10 on KPBS San Diego.
Welcome back to the Public Square on KPBS Evening Edition. As we told you earlier, Assembly member and San Diego mayoral candidate Nathan Fletcher has left the Republican Party and declared himself an independent. There has been a lot of discussion about this on social media, including the KPBS Facebook page. Here's a sample. Brian Woodward writes, "It's about time people leave the dysfunctional two-party system." Alyssa Gabriel says, "It might help his chances. This is such a tough race because no one looks all that appealing." Andrea Wagman Christian writes, "Still voting for Bob." Well, you can weigh in on this conversation by following us on Twitter. You can like us on Facebook. And, of course, you can always send me an email directly, jferrian@kpbs.org. And now let's go back to the news desk where Dwayne has a recap of tonight's top stories.
San Diego labor unions won't be able to get pension reform off the June ballot. A judge says the Public Employee Relations Board cannot take action on the measure until after the election. The unions say the plan to put most new employees into 401k plans should have gone to the bargaining table. Pension reform supporters say it's a citizens' initiative and isn't subject to labor talks. And the Camp Pendleton Marine is getting a little more time to prepare his defense to keep his job. Sergeant Gary Stein is accused of violating military rules by criticizing President Obama on Facebook. His dismissal hearing was postponed from Saturday until sometime next week. You can watch and comment on any of the stories you saw tonight on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night. We leave you with a look at the forecast.